see who we are. You might have some notions of who we are beforehand and stuff like that. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of bond and bridge that gap between us and our traditional students. So this panel is the religion and the military. Moderator, Serena.
Hi, my name is Serena Lewis, and thank you for coming out to our panel today. I served in the Navy for 6 years, and I got out. It was a whole lot of fun, and I decided to attend Manhattan College. So thank you for coming. We're going to talk about religion and the military, me and these three gentlemen next to me. So I'm here to talk to you about the Warriors at Ease portion of the stress relief program here at Manhattan College. We travel to the Bahamas, and we take part in like a yoga retreat that is focused on helping us learn and cultivate practices to cope with the stress of reintegrating back into civilian society. There's a common misconception among some students at the school that we just get to go on this fun trip to the Bahamas, and while it is still a trip to the Bahamas, we go there to work and to learn. We wake up at 6. We spend a majority of the day, we wake up, we do stretches, we learn about different systems in the body that react to stress, we do different poses. While you're at the ashram, there's no meat, so there's like a cleansing of your body physically. Another common misconception is that a lot of veterans, once they leave the service, they suffer from PTSD. And while that is true for some veterans, not all of us suffer from PTSD. There's just a natural stress that occurs when you go through a big change in your life, such as having every moment of every day accounted for you. Like for myself, coming out of the Navy after 6 years, it was odd having the option to either come to school or to not come to school. And just choices like that we all face once we get out of the service, it's a lot to deal with. You're away from everything you know. A lot of us came to study something that we've never studied before, and this program is aiming to help us cope with those different changes. So here we have some pictures of the different students that have attended this retreat, and in the picture on the right, you can see some of the students and Troy trying out some of the poses that we learned. This retreat, although it is focused on like stress relief and learning how to cope with it, it is also a chance for us to bond with other veterans. Prior to the Bahamas trip that I took my first semester here, I was unaware of how many veterans were actually in my Religion 161 class, and after this retreat, I talked to most of them on a semi-regular basis. So just, you can see that the retreat is in a beautiful location, and it allows for us to kind of detach from the stresses of the real world and actually buy into the practices that they're trying to teach us at their ashram, so we can learn them in a peaceful situation and bring them back to our hectic lives of school and maintaining friendships and trying to stay connected with our families. Here we have some more pictures of other students that have attended this retreat. For me personally, the practices that we learned, there was one we did that concerned mindfulness, and it was about taking the time out of your day and going against your mind's natural tendency to notice what goes wrong in a day, and instead take the time to be actively thankful or cognizant of what goes right in your day. Say you wake up and your alarm does not go off, your Starbucks order is late because they didn't tell you that they didn't have the coffee you ordered, and that makes you late to school. When you see someone that day, it is very easy for you to tell someone all the bad things that happened to you that day. But what you don't think to tell someone is that you woke up that day, is that your clothes were clean, that you had clothes to put on that day, and that you are attending a school that is paid for and you were able to attend. So the mindfulness practice just wants you to take a step back and not disregard the bad things that happen in a day, but don't let those be the only things that you share with people when you see them throughout the day. Here in the picture on the right, you can see some of the poses that we learned. I personally did not continue to do the yoga practices when I came home, but I've spoken to some people and they do actually still practice yoga in their spare time when they can. And on the left, I hope it's the left, you can see the last group, actually the group that I was a part of, our group in the Bahamas. Overall, the Bahamas trip, Dr. Kaplan told me he seems to think that the trip is all about breathing, but as I will tell you and any other veteran that has gone, it's more so all about bonding, and we really appreciate the relationships that we're able to cultivate during our Bahamas trip. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic, or lack thereof, to Mr. Terry Ford, who served in the Air Force.
First he's in a flex, and then okay, so my name is Terry. I am from Houston, Texas, and I joined the military in 2012 and got out in about 2017. So my relationship with religion started at a young age, around 6 years old. My grandmother, she would pick us up every day, me and my brothers, and take us to Sunday school. And while in Sunday school, I never actually committed to the religion. I always found the stories to be kind of far-fetched, and that led me to leave the church at a young age. She told us we can go do what we want to do. So I left. My brother continued to go, but eventually they stopped going as well. And so as Serena was talking about, how when you get out, you have this, you don't know what you want to do or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing as when you go in. You're by yourself, feel very isolated. And so when you're isolated, you try to lean and find something that you're familiar with. And so I found religion again while in the military in boot camp. So while in, you go, you see your friends and whatever, and they're focusing on other religions, Islam and Wiccan and things like that. And I would just go over to their groups and just see what they're talking about. And that kind of led me to I guess, maybe the other religions, and I would just sit there and listen to what they're talking about. But I focused on Christianity, and around the time I was in the 4th, 5th week, my grandmother lost her battle with breast cancer. And I kind of found it was kind of funny in a way, or interesting in a way, I guess, that she would lose that battle when I returned to the church. I guess her mission was complete or whatever, and God just called her home. Who knows? But so once I got out, I kind of stopped going to the church a little bit once I got out of boot camp. And I guess my daily life got consumed with work and things of that nature and things like that. And once I got here, in college, I met Dr. Kaplan, and he kind of taught me about Hindu and other religions, a little bit, just not much. Not very good. but no, seriously. So he taught me a little bit, and that led me to want to learn more about the religions. And you meet people who are Muslim or Hindu, whatever, and since you learn just a little bit about them, you can go and just toss it in to learn more. And that's kind of what I've been doing while I've been here and while I've been in New York City. You meet a lot of different people. Not like that in Texas. That's all you meet really is Christian. But in New York, it's a very melting pot, I guess they say. And yeah, that's pretty much my story with religion in the military. I don't really have much else.
So following on his footsteps, my name is Jonathan Hogerheide. I am an electrical engineering student here. I'm my senior year, so almost out the door, a little more to go. But I'm also here because of my time in the service. I am a captain in the Marine Corps Artillery. I'm currently in the inactive reserves while I'm finishing up my degree. And I'm here to just talk a little bit about kind of how my experience with military and religion have intersected. Kind of like Terry here, my journey with religion started at a very young age. I grew up in a Christian family, going to a Christian school with Christian friends, and church on Sunday every week. I grew up in a very staunchly detailed religious upbringing, Presbyterian to be specific. And that was one of those things that really stuck with me, was the attention to detail in terms of what is right and what is wrong. Very quickly for me, that turned into a more philosophical understanding of what. So when you're very young, you start with the basics of, you know, the Ten Commandments and the law and all these things. But for me, very quickly, that turned to the why. And that was something that was always very important. It became more important the older I got. Why is something right? Why is something wrong? Why do we live the way that we do? And that was something, like, once you got into the military, these gentlemen can certainly speak to. It gets very murky, very complicated, very often. And so being able to make a clear distinction between how do I handle a difficult situation in terms of what is right and what is wrong really becomes essential. The way that this naturally evolved for me was growing up with this philosophical understanding of religion and morality. Was it grew into my role as a leader, I felt a very strong sense of responsibility to make sure that my Marines always understood the why of whatever our mission was. It's very easy to get lost in the shuffle as you've got a million things to do all of the time. But I always found that if you work with your people and you make sure that they understand what the big picture goal is, it makes it a lot easier to understand and to achieve that, or to find an alternate method of getting things done. But also it really builds that trust and faith in the leadership that what you're doing is deliberate and not accidental when you don't have that time to go into great detail as to what it is we're doing and why. So there's times where there's just no time to explain. There's a lot more trust that you've built, you've earned through investing in your people. I've got a great anecdote on that if time permits at the end during the Q&A or offline, but what I really wanted to spend most of my time on was talking about one of my most difficult experiences in life in general, but it intersected both with religion and the military. Sorry about that. So, in particular, I wanted to talk briefly about the trial that I went through of going through a divorce. And like these things often happen, it came at the worst time possible. While I was working through my transition out of the military into the civilian world. And what really carried me through very strongly was religion, my faith, my beliefs, but also my support group that came with that. And as anyone else who's been in the military can speak to, there's also a very strong sense of community. And I found that with religion in the military, there's a lot of the same shared values and priorities for life. There's that sense of team, there's that sense of mission first, of a greater purpose. And there's also a very strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. And getting through something as difficult as a divorce, especially in a confusing time, your world's been turned upside down. You went from a very structured day-to-day routine, as our moderator aptly pointed out, to complete chaos. Civilian world is very difficult to navigate a lot of times because you are used to a routine, a very clearly laid out path and goals, and you throw on that kind of confusion on top of things and it gets very murky very quickly. But religion and the military both worked in harmony to help carry me through this. I had a very strong family and church community that really helped carry me through. Not just taking time to talk to me and make sure I was okay, but helping financially, practically with things like food and just an opportunity to relax in different ways. It's worth mentioning that this Warriors Retreat, for me, came at a very opportune moment. came almost exactly 1 month after my divorce was finalized, and that opportunity to really work on that mindfulness, that stress management, clearing your head, was significant and very important to me in terms of navigating that recovery process. One of the other things that was really crucial for me in terms of not just surviving that experience, but recovering quickly was that religious background, and kind of coupled with the military pragmatism. I'm not here to really get into the whole story. We don't have the time for that. Not the right venue for it anyway, but I will say that at the very beginning, when you see it coming, I decided before things started happening how I was going to manage the situation. Being in the military, we see a much higher than average rate of incidence of divorce, as I'm sure any of the number of the people in this room can talk to. And I'd seen the rough side of it and how people can struggle to recover something that you committed to with all of your heart and energy, to have it collapse underneath you. So I decided at the beginning, because of my religion and my beliefs, I knew there were certain things that I needed to do to protect myself and heal and recover quicker. And one of them was a big one, was like, I was not going to be bitter or resentful. I was never going to call names or cast blame. I was going to take ownership for my own actions, and I was going to lean on God. And that last one was really probably the biggest thing that carried me through. In a time of confusion, where there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of purpose, you can very easily lose faith in God, lose faith in yourself, lose faith in the future with something that feels like it's dragging on forever. But it's in those moments when you can lean on God the strongest. I've always found, in retrospect, that there is a plan, that there is a purpose, that God works in mysterious ways to change your character, to change your personality for the better. And that's certainly been the true with this experience. It's caused me to lean on God a lot stronger than I ever had in my life before that, but also to lean on friends and family, co-workers in the military, and things like that around me a lot more. So it's often the most trying times that refine us the most, and the military is certainly one of those major catalysts that changes people's lives forever. And religion, I think, if done correctly, is one of those transformative experiences as well. It gives you a foundation of what right looks like, and with a little thoughtfulness, you can see these kinds of troubles and difficulties that are coming ahead, whether it's school, whether it's finals, whether it's family issues, whether it's illness in the family, divorce, marriage, whatever, to decide in advance, use your philosophy, your religion to know what right is before you get into that emotional situation. And that was one of the biggest measures of my own personal success, was using that morality-based decision-making before I was in the middle of that chaos. And that was really what helped me to recover that much quicker when I came out the other side, was because I knew the walk that I had to walk in advance. I did my best to stick as closely to it as best I could, and I can safely say that on the other side of it, God continues to be good and has blessed me with a wonderful, loving relationship, and healing continues day by day. So I will say that military and religion, they can often push you through some of the most difficult experiences, but they can also be the most growing as well. So, and then with that, I will turn it over to Rob.
All right. So my name is Eduardo Paniagua. operator, Vibray. So with that being said, so I gotta tell you a little bit about myself first before I can go on to the story. Right? So I was a Green Beret. I was a Special Forces operator. What is that? So those are the guys that make things happen that you never hear about. You know, go eliminate targets that you never think about, or those are the guys that they send to do a lot of the dirty work. So why am I saying this? So the first question is, how many people have you killed? Yes, I've been in that position. I've been shot at. I've been blown up. I've seen people die, and my struggles with religion has come ever since I've been put in that predicament. You know, you go back and you blame it on God. You know, why God? Why him, not me? You know, why'd you allow me to shoot this guy, not that guy? Why is the guy shooting at me? Why is all this happening? You know, I've been also to worst places in the world. Why is this going on? Why is it going on? So I would go back to my room and beat the wall with my hands and all that stuff, you know, and you know, just be angry. Just be angry, blame everything on this figure called God. Right? So, you know, I really, in terms of religion, I really wasn't a religious guy, and I really wasn't, you know, I just thought, you know, if we had a good God, why the hell is this war happening? Why am I putting this weapon in my hands? Right? Until this one time, I had a friend named Brandon. It was two teams. He got bogged down on the southern side of the village, and it was only 15 of them, and they all got bogged down for about like 8-9 hour firefight. And about 6 of those guys either got shot, got disabled, or you know, eliminated. So he was surrounded, and so he took off all his body armor, he took off all his weapon, and he located the position of every guy on his squad. They were all spread out within 50, 60, 80, 100 meters on a heavy fire. He low crawled to every position. Now you see Brandon, he was, you know, for Army age, he was over the hill. He was like in his 38, 40. You know, you may say that's not too young, but for Army, that's like multiplied by 7 to 10. So this guy was, so he low crawled to every position, you know, got the, and you know, he was like my height, he was a short guy. And some of these guys, you know, they're huge, they're jacked, you know, and he low crawled to some of these positions, got him on their back, low crawled back to a safety zone. And he did this until he got everybody out. And I remember, and then one of the guys, he's like a damn football player, he's like 220 pounds. And now you're talking about a guy that weighs 160 picking up a 220 pound guy and dragging him to safety. So, you know, once everything was over, I was like, hey man, what the hell is going through your head? What is going on? He's like, Rob, I don't know what happened. I couldn't tell you the details of what was going on, but something picked me up. Something told me to go get these guys. Something told me to go save them. Something told me I was gonna be all right. And at the time, I was confused. I was like, what do you mean something? You know, I wasn't a religious guy myself. I don't know what the hell. What is this something you're talking about? Something. What do you mean? He's like, I don't know. Something told me to go get these guys. Something said I was gonna be all right, and I just did what I had to do. You know. So you know, I left it at that. And then, you know, later on, I encountered Dr. Kaplan's class, you know, after I left the military. And I didn't really think about it, but I had all these questions about who this something is, and I hated this something because this something allowed so many good people to go to waste, whatever that something is. So, as we went to Dr. Kaplan's class, you know, we started. You know, at first I thought, like, great, you know, I was born Catholic, I already did my first communion. I'm gonna end up doing my first communion again, you know, when I came to the school, because it's a Catholic school. So I was like, okay. So I just went in with an open mind. So he started teaching us about different religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, a lot of different theories. And I think, you know, and then everything kind of started coming together. So I thought about Brandon, it like, broader like was this guy Brandon O'Connor did he save these guys? He was a religious guy. He was from the get. He was a very religious person. So my question was he so religious that whether somebody picked him up or not, was it that religion was so ingrained in him that the faith allowed him to harness that energy and do what he had to do to save it, or was it really that a supernatural being saved this guy, you know, picked him up, So that was my question, and I was always engaging Dr. Kaplan because I had all these questions and all this turmoil within me. So, you know, at the end of the day, I came to a conclusion about what God is and in the military. For one, I think that God, the religion and military is one and one. You know, if I don't know how many of you guys in the military went in when you had the combat boots and you had to shine those suckers until it was bright, right? So, you know, I did that for a long time, and after a while, you shine, and when you first get there, oh man, this is nonsense. Why am I shining boots? Then after a while, it becomes like, oh my God, my boots are so shiny there. I love it. Then after a while, you just do it, that you even realize that you're really doing it. Something within you is just doing it while you're talking, and it just happens to be shiny or whatever. It's like that same thing that drives you from point A to point B, and you say, how the hell did I get here? So with that being said, you know, a lot of the teachings at the Kaplan's class, like Buddhism and Hinduism, where you just do things because something, you know, you do things because they're honorable, you do things because they're right, you do things over and over and practice until something called it, which it took us forever to define what that is, takes over and just does it, right? So, and it's the same thing in the military. You just do things, you do it with honor, you do it without reward, you just do it, you keep doing it until it gets better and better, and you keep doing it until the it takes over and you really don't know how you got there or how it's accomplished. So that's my definition, that's my similarity between religion and military. For me, they go hand in hand. So my definition out of all the classes, out of all the readings that we had in Dr. Kaplan's class, one thing struck me, and it was one reading about Marcus Borg. So we have this definition of God as the Father, the King, the Almighty, someone that's unapproachable, someone that's up there, and someone that's like a king. We're not worthy of trying to get there without any intervention. And to me, that was the God I've always been raised on. You do something wrong, He strikes you down. That never made any sense to me until kind of everything was put together like the Kaplan's class. So Marcus Borg's definition of God was instead of God being a superhuman being, a supernatural being, a lawgiver. For me, God is everything around us. It's the reality. It's the spirit that surrounds us. It's the universe. It's the energy. God doesn't intervene in anything. He just allows us to function. It's like the analogy that was put. God is like the water in the ocean. It surrounds us as we surround it, and we can't live without it. It provides the energy, provides the food, and then the fish in the ocean is the one that makes his choice to do whatever it's got to do. But God provides everything else. So for me, that is what God encompasses. It encompasses everything around us. It encompasses all the energy, and it encompasses everything that the universe offers. And that has brought peace to me more than anything else after all the years of turmoil that I've had in the military, going back and forth whether I did something right or whether it was right for me to engage this guy or whatever it was, And now I know it's just part of the universe. It's not that it's not God's job to intervene, good or bad. It's people's decision. It's just He just lays out the compass, the canvas, and we're there to kind of paint that picture. So everything that's out there is good. Spirituality, whether it be spirituality, people, souls. So for me, that is pretty much what God is, and that's what encompasses religion for me. So thank you.
Okay, at this time, we would like to open the floor to questions from students. Any students that would like to ask a question?
So there's the old saying, there are no atheists in the foxhole. Do you guys believe that the military pushes you towards spirituality?
might say that I don't like actually believe or whatever, but I don't think that's true for anybody. If somebody would come in here, guns blazing, whatever, I think we would all try to fall back on something that we know as God, you know, whatever that might be. So I don't really believe that. And I think religion pushes you to that due to isolation or unfamiliarity with your situation or surroundings, whatever. So.
I think we all have something ingrained that, and when there's troubles or turmoil, you kind of head to that supernatural being, to that person that, you know, it's higher power. So when you're in that foxhole and somebody's shooting at you, you know, you're like, you know, it kind of pushes you in that direction, you know, because that's all we have kind of to lean on is the faith that you will be out there, that you will come out alive, you know, the faith that your partners will come out alive, you know. So I think it kind of does, you know.
I would agree with that. I think less organizationally, the military as a whole doesn't really, in a lot of ways, doesn't push you towards religion, but experientially, I think with all the challenges that you face, and like we've talked about today, the more severe the challenge, the more you long for the knowledge that there is some higher power that really is shaping things in a deliberate way. Conversely, it's easier to disbelieve in God when things are going well. And I think we can all say, you know, we saw a lot of people who would want to go to church in boot camp or OCS or whatever, but the minute you leave and now you've got weekend liberty, like where is everybody? You know, there's nobody in the base chapel on Sunday morning. So it's when the chips are down, I think we naturally gravitate a belief in higher power.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think religion sometimes might act as a distraction to take your mind away from all these things that, you know, negative things? It's kind of like an excuse almost.
It's like a crutch or something?
Yeah.
I think that will depend a lot on how you approach religion. There's, from my perspective, I feel like there's going to be some people who see religion as a tool, who see religion as a social network, or different things of that nature, something that they leverage, versus looking at it the other way around, religion is something that you surrender to or you commit to. So I think what religion is to you and what you get out of it is going to depend a lot on how you approach it, your heart behind how you engage it.
I think religion is, you know, it's a good thing for soldiers, you know, especially because I think it allows you to do those. That's why you hear all the stories of heroism, you know, where this guy, you know, did that and this guy did that, because I think, you know, that person holds on to his faith and believes that something good is going to come out of it. And I think in doing that, you know, he harnesses all the energy to perform a good deed. And on the contrast of that, if you have no faith, why would you act? You know, you're like, oh, you know, he's gonna die anyway. Why am I gonna go rescue him? So let me just stay. You know, so I think faith has a lot to do with a lot of acts of heroism that goes on.
Does the military allow you to address those questions that you had? Because you were talking about how you were able to answer a lot of questions once you met Dr. Kaplan. I don't know how, but but like during your time in the military, were there moments that you could reflect on religion or anything beyond that?
I think that the problem was, especially at the height of the war, when I was in, the op tempo was so high that for you to have a day off to go, yeah, granted, you know how it is. Yeah, you guys, you know, you're free to do whatever, but in retrospect, I mean, really, you know, the op tempo is so high when you're deployed that, you know, you don't really think about, you just think about doing your job. You don't really think about going and answering questions that you have in your mind. You know, I mean, that was the case when you get deployed. You know how it is. You know, you work 24, 36, 5, 6 days, you know, in a row, depending on what your mission is. You come back, what you want to do is go to sleep. You don't care about answering questions or whatever it is. You know? And at that point,
I don't think you really have. I mean, in my perspective, you know, when you're in that mix, I don't think you have time to really reflect. Reflection comes afterwards, like on your downtime. Like maybe when you get back to the States, you start reflecting on your experience. I mean, that was me, so.
I would say that kind of along the lines of what Rob was saying, that it depends on where you are. If you're out doing a training exercise, or if you're in the rear, just recovering, planning for the next one, what have you. I will say that what I've seen of the military and the religious services is that they do try to offer religious services where they can. Some commanders will value that more than others, but the units I've been part of have tried to even offer services in the field. So you're going to be, you know, getting chow out to the guys who are doing training. They'll be running live fire ranges, but chaplain's still going to have a couple MRE cases out there. And if you got a couple minutes that you can get, your sergeant will let you get away. You can plop down and listen to a short message, and he'll do his rounds through the different positions to try to get out there to people who can't come to him. And then on the flip side, back in the rear, I've also seen that unit leadership, such as, you know, even myself as a platoon commander or what have you, we try to enable the guys, the Marines and sailors to get the religious support they need. Just real brief aside, the military assigns chaplains basically based on the percentage of service members who choose one affiliation versus another. And so a lot of guys that have a faith that is not necessarily mainstream, like the Wiccans or even Islam or what have you, it can be hard for them to find a chaplain or even the religious materials for what they need. I remember we had one Scandinavian neo-pagan in my platoon that we had to get his religious material, whatever it was, I forget, but chaplain was able to request through his money that he had available, and we got him his book, you know, so that he could sit in his quiet time and read his sacred scriptures. So I think the military offers that support as best they can.
Two things. One, can you explain to people what the rear is, and two, what the MREs are?
Sorry, it's military, the abbreviations, MREs are meals ready to eat. It's prepackaged food, comes in a lovely brown bag, and backs you up for a long time. So you basically comes in crates, and they're the easiest way to get food out when you're training in the field. In the rear just means you're back in your normal 9-to-5 job on the base. You're not living in the field, you're living in the barracks or what have you. It's normal administrative day-to-day routine. So thank you for
If you guys hadn't been in the military, what do you think your religious beliefs would be like now? How would it have been different from how it is today?
I joined because I felt like my life was like not going anywhere with college and whatever. I got the bill from my school, University of Houston, and it was like $20,000 or whatever for that one semester. I was like, oh, man. So like I need to do something, right? So if I would not have joined, I guess I probably would have came back because, like I said, I was like in a way I was somewhere that I didn't know where I was going with my life. So I probably would have just like went back to Christianity eventually. I really don't know. I don't know what would have changed if I didn't join.
I think probably non-believer, I guess. You know, I think, you know, being in the military shaped my views towards believing versus not believing. You know, I grew up in a city and everything wasn't very religious. You know, I went to church. You know, I grew up into Catholicism, but not that I really practiced it. You know, I just didn't think about God or Jesus. You know, that came later on in my life when I saw experiences, when I saw different heroic acts, when I saw stories of different people or different situations. That's when I believe, man, it's got to be something bigger than us. You know, so.
For myself, I would have believed either way. You could say that's due to my upbringing or genuine belief. Either way, I think both are true. I think what the military did uniquely to shape my religion, my worldview, was that it really opened up my eyes a lot more to the shades of gray that exist in the world around us. The world can be a very complicated, messy place, and the military is really, in a lot of ways, the most diverse organization in the United States. People come from all walks of life. I remember hearing inner city kids listening to country music, and it's like the reverse was true as well. Like fruit basket upset in terms of who's bumping past together. And well, that has to do with, I'm circling back to it. So basically, like, it exposed me to people I wouldn't have seen otherwise, and stories I wouldn't have heard otherwise, and helped me to understand that, you know, despite a belief in what's right and what's wrong, the journey to get there isn't necessarily linear from where you are at any given moment. And a lot more stronger sense of compassion for people who find themselves in difficult situations, because it really can all fall apart in a moment or come together in amazing ways in just a few moments. So that would, I would say, be what the military did for me with religion.
Now we can open up the floor, open up the floor to anyone else that would also have a question, not a student.
So I have two kids, 7 and 17. So I get questions about religion a lot. I'm Baptist. So you know, I don't. A question for you, like, I don't know if you have kids, but you know, if you do or you plan to have kids, how do you explain religion? Like, do you do like the traditional? This is what my parents told me, or like?
No, I got a 10-year-old, and so I kind of expose her to it, and we take her to church on Sunday, just because I think. So my upbringing wasn't religious. I don't, you know, so that's why I think my morality was a little screwed up growing up, because I didn't have that moral compass that would guide me in certain directions. So now my daughter has a moral compass that I don't have. She told me sometimes, like, Daddy, that's wrong. I'm like, what do you mean it's wrong? Yeah, you know, in church they told us. I was like, yeah, you're wrong. You know, and she puts me in that. So I think whether she grows up and whether she embraces that religion, I think is an important aspect to get that moral compass, and you know, especially for kids. You know, so I try to expose her as much as I can to it.
So I don't have kids, but when I do, or if I do, I'm going to expose them to religion, because like I was as a child, you know, before that opportunity, and I believe that it shaped my character, even though I didn't believe in like the stories of people walking on water or like 5 loaves of bread feeding however many people. I just didn't believe that. But as far as like right from wrong and things of that nature, that really helped me. Your mom can teach you everything, you know, and you need that community to help with that. So I'll definitely. Yeah.
I would say very similarly to what they've had, exposure to religion and aligning that moral compass at a young age. I don't have any kids, but that's the plan, right? I would say that what really helped me a lot when I was a kid, kids are naturally inquisitive. They want to know why.
Right.
So be able to tell them not just, well, it's wrong to hit people, but it's wrong to hit them why. And think about some of the ramifications and stuff. And as they get older, you can start sharing more and more of the why behind what is right and wrong. That would be my answer, I guess.
Thank you.
You said you didn't believe in like the stories of like walking on water and stuff, but do you believe them now?
I believe them as far as like metaphorically, yeah. Like feeding people, it may just be helping out the homeless or helping out people that can't afford, right? But as much as you can do, as little as you have. So I probably believe it that way. But as a kid, I just saw 5 things of bread feeding 5,000. I don't think that could be that many people in this room. But probably just helping out people with as little as you have, help out as most people as you can. So, yeah, yes.
Do you think that the military pushes you towards spirituality, or do you think for some people it's more of a convenience with lawyer?
Convenience, wow. I got worried about that, so I was in basic training. They just said, church service, like, yeah.
Still nice.
We get the whole day off. Like, yeah, I'm a Muslim. Yeah, I'm Jewish. Yeah, I'm Catholic. You know, so I was learning religion, so. I think it's a little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both as well. I know in the Air Force, on Sundays, you would have like, you'd be able to go down to the church, you get grilled cheese. So you look forward to that. But then when you're there, you're obviously going to listen to what they're talking about. And it's just like some of the stories relate to what you're going through. And I guess people like fall back on that. But as you were saying, once you get out of boot camp, once you get out of the deployment, whatever, people go back to their daily lives. So could be just for convenience, or it could be some people, you know, obviously they stick with it forever, and that's good. Some people don't.
I think it's made available, but it's not necessarily pushed. Like they kind of said, it's like when there's that opportunity and it's the only opportunity to relax or escape, there's a huge surge. There's a lot of caution, like on the leadership side, you have to be careful to not push it, because obviously there's a lot of liability and things like that. You can't proselytize if you're in a position of leadership or responsibility. You have to, you're kind of limited in how you can engage junior troops in a religious like discussion, and you have to be a little bit cautious about that. So you can't really push religion as a discussion, but you can make those resources available. And again, like, you make sure that they know the resources are out there. People will gravitate towards it or not as their emotions dictate. So.
Could you talk, I mean, Terry, you mentioned the religious diversity. Could you guys talk something more about the different kinds of religion and different kinds of people that you encountered in the United States military?
Yeah, so I met Wiccans, like people that I never like religions I never were introduced to, or at least introduced to, but not like seen the people from them, practice them. I met had conversations with Jewish people, Wiccan people.
Like, is there a Wiccan group that meets? I mean, you know, I don't
So we had
see
this
one
one Wiccan guy, and I think he converted about a good 10 people. Like seriously, he almost got me too. But he was just talking about like spirits and stuff like that. I don't remember much of it. He's a cool guy, but and then I met a Wiccan woman, like after I got out or whatever, just a friend. So what you think? But yeah, so yeah, you meet people and you learn how to interact with those people. Like I'm not an Islamophobe or whatever, but I never met one, and I never knew like the things that they practice. So if I'm out smoking or just talking about something and hearing me like cuss words, something like that, he's like, that's right, I never had a drink. And initially when you first meet that person, no, I've had it. I'm saying when you meet like you meet a devout Muslim or whatever, he tells you he never had a drink. 10 years ago, I'd probably be like, what, that's crazy. But now I understand and appreciate, or I guess, you know, that part of his practice. Yeah.
I don't know what it is in combat. MOS is military
Occupation specialty.
job. So and maybe back me up here, but the majority of infantry troops and combat troops are majority Christian. Have you seen any diversity in there?
No, you see a little bit, but I think overall as a military, it's probably Christian just because of the demographics of recruits themselves. But yeah, no, it's a lot of Christians.
I've never encountered Muslim serving in the ranks with me. I've heard of them. I've
I've never encountered a Buddhist or, you know, so predominantly it's always been Christian. So the most integrated I've been with Muslims or other religions or Hindus is like when I went to India and trained in Indian troops, or when I went to Afghanistan and you mingled with their soldiers and and you saw the diversity in what they do and stuff. So, but in the military per se, diversity is very scarce when it comes to religion.
Similarly, most of the people that I worked around with in the immediate units were at least nominally Christian. From my experience, I had one or two unusual cases. I mentioned already, Scandinavian neo-pagan was one of our Marines. I've had exposure to one or two Muslims in the U.S. military, not very many, but I also did cross-training with some Kuwaitis, and they obviously were Muslims, exchange military members from Africa who were also Islamic. But I would say overwhelmingly, if there is a religious member in the United States military, it's usually Christian, from what I've seen.
We're gonna take one more question.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's a little bit of a joke question, actually. So in the military, you get dog tag. It's supposed to put religion on it, so what they know what they do with their burial and such. Seen any interesting ones?
Yeah, I've seen that Star Wars thing.
Jedi.
That's about it.
At least like half the army has that.
That's all I can say. I really don't ask to like, yo, bro, what's your dog tag? But somebody will show you though. You don't even have them though once you're in, like they take them. You just have them in boot camp, right?
Yeah,
What?
ours all the time. That's because you were Air Force.
It's Air Force.
I never.
Anywhere dog tighter than 10 years of all of them.
I have seen some people get the meat tags. Did you ever see that? No? That's basically like if you get your dog tags tattooed on your limbs. So if that's all they find, they know who it is. So.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. On that note, thank everybody for coming out. Thank you for all the questions. They were great.
One last note, Veterans Day Parade, well, we march as a school, it's November 11th, it's a Sunday. You can register and join us, have a breakfast, and just walk with us and have a good time. So follow us on our Instagram and stuff, and